Well, this is a special edition of International Women's Day for Olvera, isn't it? It's called Balancing the Scales, which seems ironic for us in a generally a quite male-dominated field that we work in. But we've got a company where we're almost even Stevens on the partners board, yeah? Almost. Close.
We're working on it.
Yeah. We're going to have a bit of a chat about shining a light on the experiences, achievements and insights of us three. Should just introduce ourselves. Kate Foy, Principal. I look after the government advisory bit of Olvera.
Robyn Karam, Principal. I work in the forensic accounting and restructuring teams in Olvera Advisors.
Kate Barnett, Principal.
And you're one of the founding partners.
Yes.
It's very exciting. Let's talk about the great things against that theme of balancing the scales.
Why is it good to have a podcast that talks about these important issues about imbalance and diversity? I think it puts these issues in the forefront of our minds, and it helps us talk about them. And if people are listening, then might be reassuring for them that others are thinking about these things, and maybe it can give some wisdom or guidance to others. And I guess that's why it's good to have these conversations. All these diversity and imbalance issues are not isolated incidents. Everyone feels that at some point in their life, no matter who they are. And so I feel like, it's good to have it out there and have a discussion. We can all talk about it and, talk about the positive ways of dealing with them or making them better or drawing inspiration.
Addressing the question, what would I look for in a leader? I guess I'd be looking for someone who can empower their team, allow them to have an experience or have a go at managing their staff and building their own leadership skills. It's really important that they're able to build a rapport with the people that are working with them. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the key things. The other thing is trying to build an inclusive team environment so that everyone feels a part of the team. It's a positive working environment. People work together. I do see that at Olvera, actually at all levels, but particularly at the principal level. We've got a really good group of principals work together across different industries, different service lines, and it's a really diverse skill set, and you can see it firsthand when we go out to meet with our clients. That depth of knowledge, it's amazing to be a part of. One of the things that makes my professional life really challenging, rewarding, and I'm really privileged to be a part of it.
Leadership, I think, those that stand out from others is really about communication and engagement with stakeholders, and particularly in our industry where that's just such an important part. Restructure successful is about managing expectations and communication both up and down within teams and outside teams, externally, client management. I think that's probably the key point. A good leader is all about communication and then flexibility and the ability to adapt those communication styles across different types of stakeholders. So I think that probably that adaptation to communication styles is also pretty critical.
Reflecting on leadership qualities and characteristics is kind of two bits for me. There's the one that's a bit around the who, and I really love working with people who are clear about who they are. They're kind, they're inspiring, they're humble, they have fun. I think coming from the public service, kindness is because you're in service, like your whole being is about being in service to the community. So for me, kindness has been an attribute that has been sadly lacking in a lot of places, but it's a really important characteristic of service. Humility, I wouldn't describe lots of people as overwhelmingly as humble, but I think there is a humility in what we do that comes to play.
That's a really good point, Kate, because it's that lack of ego.
Yeah.
I think that makes what we do more effective. I don't know if that makes sense, but we're not in the limelight in a restructure because we're behind the scenes and we can't take the limelight. We can't say, I worked on that client still exists because we were there. We can't say that publicly. So you need to have a complete lack of ego and, be able to take that self-satisfaction away that you've helped people. So that comes back to that comment as well, I guess.
Yeah.
It's interesting trying to balance self-promotion versus humility. In the past, when I was coming up through the ranks, I've had people tell me, well, you need to talk up your achievements, otherwise how will anyone know what you've actually achieved? And it was hilarious one day because I had the partner at the time telling me, you need to talk up. And later that same day telling me, oh no, you need to be humble because really you're talking too much about how much you've achieved. One day, right? So it is a delicate balance, but I think, sometimes people aren't as good at promoting themselves and saying, done a really good job here. Sometimes it is confidentiality, which precludes you from, shouting out all the successes you had. But I find in time, word of mouth spreads anyway. And if you are doing a good job for people, they talk about it themselves. They're actually proud of it. They've been through an ordeal and they're happy to discuss it with people and say, look, we came out the other end. It's really good experience for us.
Yes, I don't think I've ever been accused of humility before, but there you go. I like it in other people. Sorry, I was talking a bit about the who, so that kind, inspiring, humble. But there's also the how. So a leader that brings people along with them, that has a calm head and a clear set of eyes, that is adaptive and that supports other people to succeed. A good leader is not those that take the success for themselves. It's those that kind of shine a light on other people.
That I've had one particular mentor has driven my success. I feel like there's a lot of people that have contributed, and I've tried to take something good away from the good people that I've come across or worked with or been exposed to. I used to have a managing partner at one of my old firms, and he was the most calmest of managing partners. He was in audit. And one of his great qualities is that he was so calm and so balanced. And I used to always say that I could walk into his office and I could tell him that we had sacked all of the staff at our firm and we had replaced them with zebras. And he would say to me, Kate, why did you do that? I, of course, would have said, what the? And had a massive meltdown, of course, but he was very calm. And I always looked at him and thought, I would love to be a lot calmer and well measured than what I am, and I could see that in him, and I always used to think that. I'm not sure that I've achieved that. That was probably 20 years ago.
Didn't
But I think there's lots of different attributes that lots of people that you come across in your career you can look at and admire, and I think what I've tried to do is take those good bits from each of the people that I've looked up to, rather than just trying to take it from one person. When you see other people in the profession that are successful and you look to them as someone you might admire, it does provide some optimism and hope that one day you might be able to get there because you're like them in some way, whether it's whatever the diverse feature you might think you have that's like them. And I think that's inspiring. The more diverse people that we have in leadership roles, the more that we can look up to people, and I suppose that creates some sort of inspiration for the younger generations to come through and succeed in the same way that these people did. So that it's like a snowball effect in some ways, I think. It can be done.
Absolutely. Before, when I left the public service, I was reflecting on the things that I have learned, which are an aggregate of all the observations and comments and everything that people have made. So there's kind of 5 for me, and I check them every now and again, and they still stand true. The first lesson is to be a hard-headed humanist. The second is to surround yourself with truth-telling cheerleaders. The third is to have a no dickheads policy, and I contend that if you can't see any, perhaps it's you. The fourth is to replace all adjectives with verbs. And the fifth is to have someone look up to and be someone to look up to. Aggregation of all the things I've heard and learned. I did get recent advice from an old colleague, as recently as last week, that said the best advice, he was good advice because he said, I'm glad, it's kind of like post-situational advice. He said, you have made the right move moving from government to the private sector. So that was heartening.
I think change is a good challenge.
It is. It is.
Sometimes I think we get too comfortable in our roles, and to challenges to grow. And
Yeah.
Jumping off the cliff sometimes forces us into those challenges.
Yeah, and it's being in this company is a nice cliff to jump off because it's a good.
There's a mattress at the bottom of the
cliff.
cliff.
There's a mattress at the bottom, and no one's trying to pull it away from the base of the cliff while I'm mid-flight. So that's been a nice transition.
Look, I suppose I've been really lucky. I've worked with some incredibly talented people over my career, and it's probably driven me to be very ambitious, to learn a great deal in a very short amount of time, and so I am grateful for that. I think probably I struggled a bit at first just trying to be heard, And I find that the mentors who probably helped me the most were the ones who helped me find my voice and make sure that, if I was thinking outside the box or came up with a brilliant idea, that there was recognition for that, how I could add value. Because, particularly, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, it probably wasn't at the forefront of my mind. And so that's why I always like to think that leaders who are really good at active listening or empowering their own staff, it's probably a very important attribute. And, recognition's a really good thing.
Reflective leadership is, I just want to it's really underscoring what Kate said. Like, reflective leadership is really important because it's in any business, but you kind of get caught up in the hurry and the turmoil of whatever is happening in the day, and particularly with clients often that we have, not all, but some of them, it's a real sense of urgency. So being able to stop and reflect and have a conversation about it's good. It's galvanising, I think, for me to spend time in a room with these two. So that's a nice thing. We actually had the discussion we had before about humility and the role of kindness and humility. I thought was a really important point, and that's kind of going to be my takeaway from this conversation.
It goes hand in hand with empathy. I think we have to show a little empathy when we're dealing with stakeholders. And I think when we meet stakeholders, they're probably at their lowest, most vulnerable. I think, there's a sense of working together to try and achieve an outcome. Empathy is just so important in what we do because it helps us look at the world through, the perspective of some of our stakeholders. So I think it is key.
Yeah, hard-headed humanists.
I think you make a really big point, and it's not about showing empathy. I think the quality that we all have around the table, and certainly my view on this organisation, is that every single one of us are very empathetic. It's not that we only show it, particularly you two. It's critical to being able to understand and negotiate outcomes well is to get in the shoes of other people. I think we are all empathetic, but we show toughness outside. I think that's the difference. Sometimes you need to be assertive, yeah.
But assertive doesn't mean that you lack empathy. It's an interesting, I wonder if that's a characteristic that people see in women. It's almost binary.
It's a perception.
You're either empathic or you're tough. You can't be both. You are decisive.
Decisive. Yeah. I am decisive. Only because Ian used to say timely and decisive. They're the two most important skills that we need.
And then back yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think optimism is the word that I would use. That, we've all got stories that are, let's call them unpleasant at best, about things that have happened to us in our career. Many people do. But let's focus on what can change and use those stories to catapult into change. Talk about it positively as stuff that we can do, and we don't accept that that's okay, and let's just move on from it rather than dwelling on all the bad things, because dwelling on the bad, I don't think, on those incidences that have occurred is helpful. It's not the catalyst for change. So I think, looking forward, being positive, driving real positive change through proactive and sensible discussion.
I don't know. I look at the geopolitics of the moment and it's pretty tragic. It is very easy to be weighed down by it. So I think having a sense of optimism is really important. So you can't go into a career with a sense of despair. You do have to go in with a sense of optimism. And that doesn't mean being blind to what's going on. I think then that's not what you're saying. You're saying, we could be open-eyed and clear-headed about it, but you kind of got to bring a sense of hope.
Hope and optimism that things are going to change and can change.
And we're part of that process. Even if it's in its microcosm and it's just influencing the young women around our tables or in our office or in our sector.
That's a really good point, because I agree optimism is so important, and in our little microcosm it might be an open door policy, making our staff feel that they can come and talk to us about anything. Nobody really knows what anybody's going through, but if your team feel like they can come and talk to you about anything that's bothering them, that's the small things that we can do to help build that optimism that everything's going to be okay. Like, we'll get through it together. And whatever adversity you're facing, odds are the two Kates and myself have faced something similar, know someone who has. And, we can overcome things. We just have that open door policy to make our staff feel like they can talk to us.
Thank you to anyone out there listening for joining us. It's lovely to know that we can connect with folks. Our conversation today was a reminder that change comes through individual action and effort, and it just needs to be small to be effective. That supporting each other, creating spaces, being available, being adaptive, being proud, being kind, they're really important aspects, I think, of us as a company, and working together where we're committed to continuing to develop a workplace, particularly where women can grow and learn and lead and thrive, is really important. And to bring a cohort of young men in the organisation as well that are empowering of each other and the women in the organisation it's a real privilege to be a part of. So thanks for listening. Until next time.